everyone, it's Leonette. Welcome back to DIY Beauty on Purpose. So today I am working on 3 projects inspired by higher end home decor. And so I'm starting with this bucket that I saw at on the Wayfair website, and it was $43. So a little too expensive, but I really love the tone, the texture of it. And it has that farmhouse look to it. So I'm going to try to recreate it with this galvanized bucket I got at the Dollar Tree. It was just $1. This stencil I have had for quite a while now. I've used for several projects. So I'm going to reuse it here with the bucket. So I'm just securing it because I'm just going to use the bottom half of the stencil. I will then be using some spackling. This spackling I've had, oh my gosh, for so long. I'm going to be spreading it like I would any maybe frosting on a cake. Not that I do much baking, but basically just flattening it on the stencil and removing as much excess as I can. Now, once I remove it, it'll leave the stencil, but it will be raised up. So it would be a textured stencil. Maybe you've seen other DIYers do this. I know I've seen it, but I have never done it. So I'm really excited and happy that I get a chance to try it. And so anyways, I'm going to continue to do this with the entire stencil. And then when I remove it, I'll remove it nice and softly so not to remove any of the letters. Overall, I was very satisfied with how it looked. There were some areas that I had a bit too much of the spackle, and I tried removing it, but you know what? I was afraid that by trying to fix it, it would just get worse or ruin it, so I just decided to just leave it as is. I let it dry overnight, and it hardened completely. Now I'm using Behr Premium Ultra Plus paint. This is an amazing quality paint, guys. If you're looking for household paint, it's a little bit more expensive, but it's really good paint. I'm using the color Mossy Bench. I have used this for several projects, and it is beautiful. It has like a greenish, grayish teal to it. It's just a beautiful color. I'm using a chippy brush, and I'm going to dab the paint on instead of brushing it because I want to get inside all the little cracks of the stencil. And then I'm going to paint the entire bucket using that same dabbing technique so that it dries with a little bit of texture throughout the whole bucket. I only had to do 1 coat because, again, the paint is really, really good quality. I did have to go back, though, and dab in a few areas where I just did not paint. So it really didn't need a second coat. I just had to go back and just retouch the areas where I missed. So after it was fully dry, I am going to take some chalked paint from Rust-Oleum line in the chiffon cream and a smaller brush just to add some shadowing around the letters and the details. And then that's all I'm doing with this brush, just adding a little bit of shadow. I'm now taking the chippy brush again, and I'm just adding a little bit of the same chiffon cream color just around the rim and some other areas here and there. I am now going to grab a smaller detail brush, and I'm going to now outline the letters because although you can feel them and when you look at it closely, you can see that the letters are lifted up and textured, but it just blends in and you just can't really see it. So now I'm just tracing it so that you can actually see what it says. And I'll do that throughout the entire stencil. It was actually quite satisfying to trace these letters. I can't explain it, but it was so weird. But I'm all done. And here is the inspiration bucket from Wayfair, and everything will be linked down below. And here's my recreation of it. Only $1 for the bucket, and that's because I already had the paint, the spackle, and the stencil at home. So of course, use whatever you have at home if you're ever going to recreate something like this. I have had these for a while, but the bucket was only $1 at the Dollar Tree. Very happy, and I think it's gonna look great with some greenery or maybe some real plants outside. Alright guys, so for my second project, I am going to try to recreate these basket trays from Kirklands. They come with a set of 2. They have a wooden bottom, and they're $90 for 2 of them. So I got these baskets at the Dollar Tree. They were only $1 each. And what else? Okay, so I got the sticks as well. These are those craft sticks, and they are the larger ones. So I'm going to use that to recreate the bottom wooden part of it. Now, after I was doing this, I thought to myself, you know, Leonette, it would have been a lot easier if you just went to the garage, grabbed a piece of scrap plywood that I have, and cut it to size to fit the bottom of each tray and call it a day. But no, of course. I did want to use something that anybody would have at home if you already have it, or that could easily be purchased at the Dollar Tree, of course, whenever you are able to go to the Dollar Tree. So I first put one, and I measured where I thought would look appropriate on the bottom of the tray. And then I cut it, and I am using that first one to trace, I guess, or to measure the ones or the rest of them. I had to cut, let's see, I think there was 24. Was it 24? I can't remember. It was so many of them. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. But it wasn't hard work. It was just, you know, tasking. But no big deal. So I did this, and then I cut. After they were all cut, I did have to sand the edges just a little bit, because once you cut with scissors, it just creates little splinters, and you don't want that. So I'm just sanding with a 220 grit piece of sandpaper. All right, so then moving on to the trays, and we'll go back to the sticks here in a little bit. I didn't have any spray paint on hand, so I decided to just use what I had. And I'm using the chalk paint from Rust-Oleum and the charcoal, which is a very, very dark gray, almost black. And I'm using a chippy brush again, and I'm just dry brushing the paint on, really. Not a lot of paint on the brush. And I'm going to give it 2 coats, both on the inside of the trays as well as the outside. And again, I'm using a dry brush technique, so it's very, very little paint on the brush, and just dry brushing it. Because if you put a lot of paint on the brush, you know what's going to happen. It's just going to clump up. You're going to have a lot of drips because of the basket that you're painting. So that's why dry brush would be best. And then just do as many coats as you need. All right, so back to the craft sticks. I am now going to be staining them again, because the inspiration baskets did have a stained bottom. This is a stain by Varathane in the golden oak. And if you are going to be doing this indoors, please make sure you have some sort of ventilation, because it could get a little strong. All right, so moving on now to the little handles. So each tray has 2 handles, or yeah, 1 handle on each side. So 2 handles per tray. And I am going to try to recreate it with these floor wires that I got. It's like a garden ties that I got at the Dollar Tree. And I cut them to what I thought would be an appropriate size to have a handle, as well as to have enough on each end to wrap around the basket. Again, because I did not have any spray paint, I'm using the same charcoal tone from Rust-Oleum chalk paint, and I am painting just the outside ends, because I will be tying or wrapping the middle with some jute twine. All right, so now that these sticks are nice and dry, I am going to hot glue them to the bottom of the trays. I am using hot glue, of course, as you can see, but not in the higher setting, just in a lower setting. And I'm just making sure that on each end is nice and even as I'm placing them. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but as much as I was able to, I guess. And, you know, some glue is getting on the fabric below, but it's fine. I'm just separating them and unsticking them as I go. And I did that to both trays. So I'm all done with the bottom of the trays, and now I'm going to move on to continuing to work on the handles. So the inspiration baskets had like rope-like or twine-like on the handles, so I'm going to try to wrap these around. The only thing, this is not hard at all, you just wrap it around. The only thing I did want to make sure is that it was nice and tight or snug, because once I bended to create the handle, I didn't want any of the green to come through. So I just made sure that as I was wrapping it, I kept pushing upwards and ensuring that it was nice and tight. And then I secured it at the bottom using hot glue as well. All right, so because the ties had the wire on them, it was nice and easy to wrap around. However, they do have like a rubbery texture to it on the outside, so the paint did chip a little bit as I was rolling it around. But it was fine. I just dusted it and then I retouched it with the paint after I was done with that. And once I wrapped all 4 handles, I will be all done. All right, guys, so here is the inspiration from Kirklands. There came a set of 2 for $90, and here are my trays for $5. And that was because, of course, you need the 2 trays, the craft sticks, and then the wire. But if you have a lot of this already at home, it could be even less. And, of course, I did have the stain at home, so I like them. I really like the way they turned out. Very happy. All right, guys, so for my third and final project, this was my least favorite, and I still wanted to show you because, you know, sometimes when you craft and things, you have this inspirations, and I said, let me try it. And I wanted to recreate that beautiful clock that you saw there from Wayfair. And the only thing that I had on hand that I thought would work was this large silver plastic tray from the Dollar Tree. And so I am giving it 2 coats of the Rust-Oleum chalked paint and the linen white using my chippy brush. And this paint has a great coverage, so one would have been almost sufficient, but because it's that slick surface, it did need 2, and that's what I did. So after I let it fully dry, as if you remember, the inspiration clock had a stencil on it that said Gather. I do not have a Gather stencil, and I wanted to keep it as simple as possible, so I didn't want to I didn't want to create one on my Cricut. So I had this Together stencil, and I thought, hey, I can turn a Together into a Gather, right? So I taped off the 2 or the T and the O, and the bottom saying, and now I'm using Rust-Oleum chalk paint in the Country Gray, and I'm stenciling the stencil onto the clock using a sponge stencil applicator or brush. All right, so I am now using a detailed brush to kind of trace over and fix. As you can see, there's a lot of bleed through, which I was not happy about. So I'm using the the detail brush to kind of go over and just straighten out some of those lines as much as I can. And it did make it thicker. I was a little disappointed because I think the thinner letters or handwriting kind of style would have been a lot neater and nicer, but you know, sometimes you just got to work with what you have. So I am going to, again, just trace everything. And then after I was done with that, I did grab some of the white paint and I did fill in the, oh my gosh, the E that I turned into an A. Just going to fill it in so that it turns into an A. All right, here comes the part that I was just the least happy about. So I am trying to, of course, it's a clock. So I try to make the numbers, the inspiration clock had smaller, thinner numbers, and I thought that smaller numbers would be nicer. So you see the stencil that is on the right side, right there, the orange one. I tried using that because it had smaller numbers, but it's too thick and it wasn't bendable. So it wasn't flexible enough to be able to get the numbers done right on that curved edge that the clock has. So I ended up getting this stencil that I got a while ago. And I am using the Sharpie because I knew that if I even tried to use paint and a brush, it would have been way too much bleed through. So here I am just trying to, as much as possible, get a little bit of an outline from the stencil and then just kind of freehand some of it with the Sharpie. And it didn't look horrible. I just feel like the numbers were too big. But I committed to it and I'm just going to finish it using that one. All right, so now on to the mechanism. This mechanism I purchased, I had thought I was going to use it for a different project. I ended up not using it. So I had it already. I got it a couple months back and I thought, hey, I'm going to use it. It does bring 2 sets of hands. So I kept the smaller ones because that would be the appropriate size for this clock. I am going to be using my drill and drilling a hole in the middle so that I can fit the mechanism through. I have never worked with a mechanism like this, so you're going to see me go back to the instructions quite a bit as I am trying to figure this out as we go. So I am using one of the thicker drill bits. I ended up having to go back and make it thicker after I tried to put it in because it wasn't thick enough, but it went through very easily because it is plastic. So it has several parts. I'll have it linked down below. It wasn't horribly expensive at all. So this is where I started to put it in and I realized that, yep, it wasn't fitting. So I had to make it bigger. Now you see that little silver kind of larger part on the left side of the screen? That I should have put first before I try to put it in. I try to put in the little square mechanism behind it. So as I'm doing that, I'm still looking at the instruction and I still missed that part. So I don't show you this part, but I did in the end had to unscrew everything and put everything back on with that part. No big deal. It wasn't hard. You just follow the instructions and voila, put a battery on it and you're done. It was actually, that part was actually pretty simple. I want to take a moment here and invite you to subscribe to my channel if you have not done so yet. I do upload videos every single week, so I don't want you to miss them. All right, guys, so here's what the inspiration looked like, and here's what mine looks like. So it's not horrible. It's not. But, you know, in my mind, I had such high expectations. And but overall, I'm very happy that I still stuck through it and that I finished it. So guys, this is it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you are safe and healthy, and I hope you have a great day.